Good morning, YouTube friends. So the engine for the bike build came in and I haven't taken it out of the crate yet. Peeking at it through the crate, we found a couple of things. We found that the oil pressure switch, which makes the oil light turn off, is broken. Not a big deal, I already have another one. We had one in stock at the shop, so I just bought it from the shop at work. And it looked like in the pictures it might have aftermarket pushrod tubes, and it does. So if it's got aftermarket pushrod tubes, it most likely has adjustable pushrods, which means it probably has something fancy going on inside the cam chest. So once we get it out of the crate, we're going to pop the cam chest open and see what's going on in there. And I wanted to pop the cam chest on this anyway because this is a twin cam and they're known for the cam chain tensioner shoes wearing out. So I want to make sure that those are good. But I also want to see what aftermarket stuff, if anything, is in there. So let's get her out of the crate for the first time. And this will be the first video in the build series. I guess it's a good thing we don't intend to save the crate. This is rather precariously perched on a pallet, on another pallet, on top of a furniture dolly, because that's what we had to do to get it out of the truck. Oh, they've got all kinds of stuff going on with this crate.
Need a crowbar.
I do need a crowbar, but I don't have one. I have a framing hammer and some big normal pry bars. Because I'm not a carpenter. This actually came to my work because they wouldn't ship it to my house because it came FedEx freight. This actually came from Maryland. And I wound up using my motorcycle lift at work to get this in the back of my truck, and then we used the engine crane to get it out. So this bike originally would have had, or originally did have, a Harley Davidson Evolution engine in it. And I originally planned on rebuilding the transmission and buying a used twin cam that I took out of another bike from my boss, because the twin cam we have at work that I was going to buy from the boss that came out of another bike was a little tired, but it was a good running engine. And the boss decided he didn't really want to sell it. So I decided it would be a lot easier to put a twin cam that was already on a transmission into this bike than to rebuild this transmission and put an adapter plate and hope that everything fit with the primary and everything. And to just put an Evo in it, I'd have paid more for a used Evo than I did this whole setup. I could not get this onto the floor with the engine crane because of the width of the pallets and the width of the legs of the engine crane. And this thing's so ridiculously heavy, we're going to have to use the engine crane to try and wiggle it into the bike. All right, I need an oil filter adapter, which I was not expecting to need. So I guess I'll have to get one of those on order, but not a big deal. The eBay description on this engine said unknown mileage, ran when they took it out of the bike and made 150 psi per cylinder on the compression test. And these guys have a really good feedback rating and they've got lots of sales. So I felt pretty comfortable buying this engine. I'm pretty comfortable thinking that this is going to be a good running engine when we get it in the bike. But it's eBay, so you are kind of rolling the dice. Jim's Tools makes cool little boards that have an outline of your case covers and you put all the bolts in. I happen to know that these are all the same length, so I'm not worried about it. But if I was doing the primary side, I would make my own little board out of cardboard and just draw a picture on it and stick all the bolts through. This is an older twin cam. It came out of a 2000 Road Glide. So I don't know. It's 22 years old, so who knows what's all been done to it. But originally it should have been an 88 inch. Well, we've got a stock cam plate. And this tensioner shoe looks brand new. And there's another one in behind, that's the one that always gets chewed up. And I don't want to take it apart. So I've got a bore scope we're going to look in there with. These are definitely aftermarket pushrod tubes, because the stock ones have a little loop and they're shorter at the top. So these are for adjustable pushrods. All right, bore scope's up and running. That tensioner shoe looks just fine. It looks new. Let's see if I can see the other side. Yeah, that tensioner shoe is fine. It's brand new. It's not all chewed up. I don't know how well the camera can see the bore scope picture. But I can just see. Let's see. Let's do this angle. I can just see the edge of that tensioner shoe in there. There's the cams. That looks good. That looks like fairly normal wear. That also looks like fairly normal wear. That one looks good. I think we're good to go here. But let's see if I can get a view of that. Nope, the spring's in the way. There it is. There's a good look at that. That brown piece, which I don't know if you can see. There we go. This piece here is your tensioner shoe. And if it was worn out, you'd be able to see it hanging over the edge of the chain. And it's not. And on this side here, we can see the tensioner shoe's all nice and smooth. It's not got a big hole chewed in it, just like the front one here. So those are good to go. No fancy alien technology in there that I can see. Looks like a stock oil pump and stock cam plate, but the tensioner shoes are in good shape. So we're happy. And because I want the nice lady behind the camera to ride this bike, I really didn't want a fire-breathing monster of an engine, so that's good. The only other bike she's ridden on her own is this little Honda. So, let's have a look at the belt. It's a little dirty, but I don't see any damage. And I don't see any reason we can't use this belt. So that saves us a lot of work tearing down the primary and putting a different belt on. So that's good too.
Oh, leaf.
Those leaves. But and get my gloves back on. I don't think I even need to replace that gasket. That's a nice James gasket. It's reusable. But I have a new one, so we're gonna. All right, so this is just an older style twin cam than I have seen before, because we got our little window on the camshaft, and this is a cam sensor, and that's what that wire is for. It's not going to be used in this application, so I'll just tie that wire up out of the way when it's back together. But we've seen what we needed to see. We know that the tensioner shoes are good. So I'm just going to get the oil out of here. And I'm going to have to clean that off with a razor blade, because I don't want any of those gasket bits getting into my engine. I'm going to just tuck a rag right there. And I probably would have been safe to reuse that gasket, but I have a new one, so I'm going to use it just to be sure it's not going to leak. Someone has been in here before. Because that's not a stock Harley Davidson gasket. That's a nice aftermarket gasket. So I'd say these have been replaced fairly recently. Fairly recently mileage-wise, not time-wise. And that's nice and clean. It looks ugly, but it's stained. There's our new gasket. I'm going to start 2 of these in here to hold it in place, and then the rest are going to get Loctite, and then I'll take the first 2 I started back out and Loctite them. The torque spec in the book says 125 to 155 inch-pounds for these. I'm not going to go that high. I'm going to go 120 inch-pounds because these are steel bolts into an aluminum case that someone's been in before, and 120 is plenty that it will not come loose and it will not leak, and hopefully enough that it doesn't rip the threads out of the case. Miss my T-handles.
Hmm.
And it's heavy. We're gonna have to figure out how to sling it with the engine crane to get it into that bike. I should be able to raise the lift and wheel the engine crane under it.
That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I only need to raise it enough to where the legs of the crane will go under it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even running these all the way down to where they contact the case cover, because I want to make sure that I've got a little bit of play there so they'll all go in, and then we'll tighten it down. And remember, inch pounds, not foot pounds. All right, so before we can put the engine in, we're going to replace this engine mount and get the rest of the engine mount sort of put together. And of course, because it's Harley Davidson, we've got a nut and a bolt instead of a bolt and a hole, like you have on a more modern bike. And you can spend as little or as much as you want on these engine mounts. The affordable replacement I got was $25, but you can spend as much as a couple hundred on fancy urethane ones that are milled aluminum, and you know, and those ones last longer, but they're a harder rubber compound, so you get more vibration into the bike from the engine. This one's actually not bad, but it was cheap enough to replace that I decided I'd go ahead and just put a new one in now so I won't have to later. I'm not going to say that one's not bad, I meant to say it's not too bad. Wipe some of the crud off of here, because this is right underneath the oil filter, and oil spills out every time you change the oil and replace the filter, and gets on that engine mount and degrades the rubber. And there's kits that'll relocate the oil filter down here below the voltage regulator, but they're not necessarily available for every bike. All right.
Ooh, nice and clean.
Yeah. And this side goes up. And when you put a new engine mount, you don't tighten it tight. What you do is you leave all these just a little bit loose, and then you tighten them after the first engine start. You start it up and let it run a minute, and then you shut it off, and it sort of puts itself where it wants to be, and you tighten everything down. That way everything's centered, you're not putting stress on the engine and the engine mounts. And these are nice self-locking nuts, so it takes a little bit of effort to run them down. Can still move, so we're good. So now, let's wipe this off too.
That's pretty grungy.
And you can see from the witness marks that, you know, it doesn't always necessarily fall right in the center of the bolt holes. That's why we leave them kind of loose, so everything can center itself and be where it wants to be. Nope, that's not the one I wanted. There it is. This one we tight. I'm gonna put some Loctite on it in a minute. And then this big fat washer goes on the bottom because in theory, if this goes bad, this can't pull through the hole. But and again, I'm not going to run this down super tight. Just those want like 24-foot